Today we're going to talk about Miami as a tech hub, and and I would like to maybe you want to introduce yourself briefly and tell us what you're doing in Miami.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Emerge, maybe.
Of course.
Yes.
Matthew, thank you for the opportunity and for having us here. Having me alongside one of my brothers from another mother here is always fun. Melissa Medina, born and raised right here in Miami, actually in Miami Beach. So one of the few, I think, natives now from Miami. Extremely passionate about giving back to this community, a community that's been absolutely amazing to my family and I. My parents are Cuban immigrants, and we have been, as you mentioned, in the technology sector at this point now, my career over 20 years, in the family longer than that. And our mission remains the same, and that is to help create and foster a thriving tech and entrepreneurial ecosystem right here in our community, in our region. And we don't do that alone. We do that with incredible partners and incredible organizations, across the state, across the region. And I'm excited to talk more about Emerge and what we do, but that's a little background on me.
Thank you, Elisa. And Saif, you're expert in many tech subjects and also contributed to the creating Miami as a tech hub. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mathieu. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling? We need more energy than that. All right. So first off, I want to appreciate Mathieu and the organizers. Pulling together work like this is never easy. And if you showed up here today, it means that you're a builder and you're part of this movement that has been happening in our community for a very long time. Just by way of quick biography, and my good friend Dr. Susan Amat would know this. If you don't know Susan, she is one of the OGs of the Miami innovation ecosystem. I've been a builder in this community. Like Melissa, I'm a native of South Florida, a little bit different. I like to say I was born in the Caribbean, made in the 305. So, for those of us who share that type of roots, I'm one of those folks. But 25 years ago, when I graduated from the University of Miami School of Law, I built my first software company. Folks like Dr. Susan Amat were in that early journey, helping people like me. The first version of me as a founder, I had a lot more hair and a lot more muscles. The second, in the 25 years intervening, I've had an opportunity to play a lot of different leadership roles in our community, whether that was during my time at FIU or helping to support Mayor Suarez in launching and creating Venture Miami and really capturing lightning in a bottle. More than anything right now, I have the great joy of leading a company called Lab 22C. We serve as operating advisors to the world's best founders and institutions and helping them with go-to-market strategies. We help them with strategic partnerships. But most importantly, now on the other side of the table, I get to be a strategic resource to those founders, sharing lessons that I've learned in my 25-year journey, and also something which I share with my dear sister Melissa, telling the story about what's happening in the Miami innovation ecosystem. And what's happening here is extraordinary because of individuals like each and every one of you who are willing to risk it all for what we're trying to build. I get to work at the cross-section of a lot of different technologies, but I know that we're going to touch upon that. We're excited about what you guys are doing in this digital twin movement because this really is a big part of the future of what we're trying to all build.
Yes, absolutely. So Melissa, thank you. Melissa, you are running Emerge. So Emerge is one of the largest tech conference, I think the largest in the East Coast. Every year, since the past 10 years, you've been hosting it. So can you tell us a little bit more about this conference?
Yeah.
Since the beginning, if you don't mind, and today.
Yeah, so Emerge Americas was actually born out of two emotions. One was passion, extremely passionate about this community, and the second was frustration. And you might ask, why the frustration? And that was because my father built a company called Terramark Worldwide, headquartered here, global company, IT infrastructure, one of the first to get into cloud computing, and I had the privilege of working there for almost a decade. And the frustration came in people always asking us, why is this global company headquartered in Miami? It's always a question we got, traveling all over the world. And the second one, it was very difficult hiring talent, whether it was local, amazing talent, or talent from outside of Miami as well. they would ask, yeah, great company, but I don't know if I have more opportunity after that. So coupling that passion, that frustration, when the company sold in 2011 to Verizon, the first conversation my father and I had was, is there any way to change that narrative or help change that narrative? So the first idea, spark, that we had was, well, why don't we create a community? We had been to conferences all over the world selling our products and services, and at the time, circa 2011, 2012, there was no convenings like this that you're doing right now here in Miami, and so we thought, can we bring together what we consider the 5 tech ecosystem stakeholders, entrepreneurs, investors, global tech organizations, academia, a very big piece of it, and government, all together under one roof here in Miami to help begin to show that you can build, launch, scale a company here and telling those stories from Miami. Since then, we're actually going into our 11th year now, so it's been 11 years. It's super exciting. No way we would get to where we are without the amazing support and partnerships that we've had. Miami-Dade College represented here was an amazing partner. He mentioned Susan Amar, who was one of our supporters from the beginning. The county is one of our founding partners. But the event itself, which has grown, now we bring together almost 22,000 people from over 60 countries annually. But that is a culmination of a year's worth of work. We are a 4 organization with very mission-driven. We have a robust accelerator program. We're publishing insight reports, tracking venture activity. So don't just listen to me evangelizing and being an ambassador for this community. Follow the data, and we want to prove that we've grown significantly in terms of venture activity, venture dollars, and we are publishing that as well. And then we host another 25 or 30 smaller convenings throughout the year. So it is a year-round effort and a movement, and we're excited to continue to build here.
Awesome. And over the years, I saw the progression of the tech companies coming to Miami, and you mentioned Terramark and being bought by Verizon. And what were the companies at the time in the early days of Miami tech scene that really moved the needle to bring talents and tech jobs? What in your opinion, were the big movers?
So I think it's important to recognize that what's been happening in the innovation ecosystem here in South Florida is a 40-plus year story. A lot of us forget that IBM's campus in Boca Raton is actually the facility that gave the world the personal computer. Motorola's campus up in Plantation is where some of the earliest technology that was developed around SMS, texting. And the density of those 2 companies in particular, along with many others over a period of time, brought in the type of engineering talent that really allowed our ecosystem to be able to grow. At the end of the day, what drives ecosystems are people and proximity to research institutions. We've got 2 R1 research universities here in Miami, in addition to America's largest community college. If you combine the amount of research between FIU and University of Miami on a biannual basis, they're doing about $1 billion worth of research. And then at the application layer with Miami-Dade College, it keeps growing, but it's people who are powering that. I think one company in particular, and a founder that I want to shout out as an example of this, because he's been part of multiple chapters of Miami. We know Manny Medina, Melissa's dad, is one of them, but another person who many of us who are working in the augmented reality space we think of is Roni Abovitz. Roni Abovitz is somebody, he founded Mako Surgical, a medical robotics company. He's a proud University of Miami graduate, engineering graduate. So he's had 2 unicorn successes, Mako, which was wildly successful. Then he built Magically. He physically launched Magically at the same facility that Motorola used to have as their engineering campus up in Plantation. So he had 2 colossal wins. Roni is a friend and mentor, and I get to serve as an advisor to his newest company, which is actually an enterprise AI software company. And last year, so here's somebody who's a builder. He's built not just 1 company, he's not built 2 companies, he's now onto his 3rd company. And last fall, he actually closed a $20 million seed round to be able to continue to build his enterprise AI software company, SynthB, right here in South Florida. So the story of this region is, the origin are the IBMs, the Motorolas, companies like Ryder. We don't think about them and what they've done to be able to bring in so many engineers. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines has literally hundreds of engineers who are based here, but it's about the serial builders that are creating. And for a lot of the folks who are here, I think about young founders and sort of company builders like Daniel Laplana at Shockworks, right? So him and his brother are founders, but then they're like founders. They're working with great companies that are out there, like Microhub. And so I think that it's this multi-chapter journey of builders in our community who will be focused on the long game. Miami is not a moment, it's a movement. And I think it's about having that ability to get back up every single day. And those are the companies who are driving our region.
Yes, I think Daniel Laplana is here from Shockworks. And can you raise your hand? Yes, he's here. Welcome, Daniel. Yes, it's amazing. And so, talking about universities, what are the efforts that are driven by universities? I know Miami-Dade College has a big STEM environment. FIU is also big in computer science and engineering. So, what's your take on the university driving those skills curriculum for the new tech jobs?
Yeah, I would say, our work with the universities has been phenomenal. And they really, all of the major universities in South Florida, if it wasn't for their support and their vision and belief in our, what people were saying was a crazy concept back in 2012, I don't know if we would be here today. And they have innovated so much over the last decade. I mean, Miami-Dade College now has, one of the first colleges that is offering an AI degree. They have an AI center. They have a cybersecurity center. They have Magic, exactly. I mean, just on FIU, graduating incredible number of engineers, as Saif was mentioning, their research program. Together with in 2018, under President Julio Frank, the former president, we launched a university consortium together at eMERGE in 2018. We are now the facilitators of that consortium and go to their partner universities in Latin America and create a bridge, transfer of knowledge between those universities and the University of Miami, invite their entrepreneurs into our accelerator program. NOVA, Southeastern University, with their Levan Innovation Center. And all of these universities are doing a phenomenal job. And I could say firsthand, working with them, I'm super proud of what they've done over the last decade. And I think Miami right now, again, being born and raised here, I think we're living in probably the most exciting time and opportunity that we all need to leverage, though, right? We need to put in the work, we need to continue to grind. But in terms of education and the university system, I'm a big believer in it, and I see it. We've hired talent directly from these universities at eMERGE, and they're phenomenal students.
Yes, I've been to Miami-Dade College, and I was really impressed by the cybersecurity center that they built. It's really world class. The artificial intelligence center, the Magic, which is doing animation, and I really think we can leverage that.
The Idea Center, and we work with the Idea Center often as well.
Yeah.
Just pushing the entrepreneurial narrative. It's an incredible asset. And I have to say, my father is at Miami-Dade College, got his AA there, and then went to FAU. And he will say in front of everybody that the reason that he has made it to where he is today was, without a question, Miami-Dade College.
Wow.
If he had not gone there, he would not have gone down the route of creating a business and building what he's built. He says it changed my life.
Awesome. Shout out to Miami-Dade College. Now, maybe talk about also business. So business-wise, companies need funding. It's not only about the skilled jobs. We need to attract those talents here in Miami. What's your take on this? Like, how many companies get funding? Seed stage, early stage, Series A? Can you give us a little bit more info on that?
So this is a good question, and I think that if we want to be successful, we have to be able to lean into hard truths. Sometimes we get into spaces as a Miami innovation ecosystem, and we do a really good job of just like hyping each other up, patting each other on the back, and we know that you can't actually grow unless you're willing to both deliver and absorb hard feedback. So here's the good news. If you look at Crunchbase and Carta data, Miami is now in a top 10 position for both pre-seed and seed stage funding. And that's a major, major breakthrough, right? So that's where we can clap ourselves, pat ourselves on the back, right?
And we probably weren't even in the top 20 in the last 10 years, right?
Correct. We were not in the,
Massive leaps.
so it's major exponential leap. But then what's beginning to happen is when you get to Series A and you're a founder and you're here in South Florida, do not get discouraged. Even if you are a founder, I was just in Silicon Valley 2 weeks ago. Even if you're a founder in the Valley, you have to get on a plane, you have to dial for dollars, you need to show up, you need to knock on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doors. Most founders, by the time they close that Series A, they basically are like numb in the face because they've been punched in the face that many times that when you ask them, you're like, and Melissa's been through this, when you're congratulating them, they're beyond the congratulatory state and they're just focused on head down execution. But what we have here in South Florida for business, and I think that this part really matters, because they're ecosystems that are super dense and rich with capital, but then they're light on the actual customers. We know at the end of the day, if we follow the Jeff Bezos model, you win when you are customer obsessed. Remember, if you're sitting here in Miami and you're building, whether it's a digital twin company, maybe you're thinking about something novel about tokenization, you're sitting in a G20 economy, meaning that you're sitting in an economy that's the size of one of the 20 largest global economies in the world. It's the F word. It's called Florida. We're the third largest economy in the United States of America. So maybe you might be challenged in being able to unlock venture capital, but there's something that's even better than that, which is revenue from customers. But it means that we have to kind of get out of the bubble of the endless Miami cocktail, believing that all capital just exists on the Venetian Islands. It doesn't. There's something that's much, much more powerful. There are ecosystems in the I-4 corridor. Florida is the only state in the union that has 3 combatant commands. We have U.S. Southern Command, we have U.S. Central Command, and we have U.S. Special Operations Command. We have an ability to be a defense tech dual use hub on parallel with Austin. So it doesn't matter what you're building around. I think you have to get way out of your comfort zone and get into that revenue, and also recognize if you're trying to raise capital, knock on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doors, get outside of the ecosystem, get to Atlanta, get to North Carolina, get to the East Coast, everything essentially east of the Mississippi, you should consider your home market and knock on lots and lots of doors.
I'll add to that too, just like the shift in narrative specifically when it comes to investment and venture. When we first launched Emerge and we were evangelizing it as a concept, the first 2 years we opened our doors in May of 2014, we already kicked off our accelerator program then too. So we were working with amazing founders from day one, and we had all this incredible deal flow. We could not get investors to come. I'm not kidding. We could not pay for their trip in Miami Beach. Like, how could you say no to that? And they quite literally would say, to go to Miami to meet with founders? I mean, it was no way that would happen. And what I'm proud to say is 11 years later, the narrative is completely different. Now it's, how can we get access to those founders first? The investors want to be here. Many of them are already here in Miami. So that has definitely changed the whole landscape of venture activity.
Yes, and I think there also has been a shift recently, right? I was here before the pandemic. We were doing a lot of events and workshops trying to get the tech crowd to be interested in Miami. And since the pandemic, I think the scene has completely changed.
There's no, and us that we've been in it from the beginning, we would be the first ones to tell you, there is no question that the pandemic opened a massive global lens into our, not only South Florida, into our entire state. It changed the dynamic, it added an acceleration that I don't think any of us ever would have imagined.
Can you emphasize on that? Because it didn't only bring tech companies, but also attracted a lot of capital from other states, right?
Yeah, it created a flood of tech talent, a flood of capital, a flood of family offices, a flood of industries. It wasn't just tech, but I will say for tech and innovation, it was probably the highest growth period over the last 5 years. Of course, all industries, I think, accelerated post-COVID, and we would never want to live through a global pandemic again. I don't think anyone would wish that. But there was, if we're looking back now, right, there was definitely a silver lining for our state. And being pro-business, being open, all of that just attracted a lot of people here, and many of them ended up saying, oh wow, wait, this is not just a place to vacation. I could build here, I could, my team can come here. It just ended up opening a whole other sort of conversation with folks that didn't even have Florida or Miami on the map to move to before the pandemic.
Right. Also, if we compare, because it's always interesting to compare where we are compared to other states. You take the one of the leading states when it comes to tech is California, right? And if you compare job to job creation, we are still a bit far from the creation of tech jobs. If you compare to Los Angeles, for example, last year was 330,000 tech jobs created in LA versus a little shy of 50,000 for Miami. So Uber was created in LA, Facebook, a lot of big names were created in this region. What would it take for Miami to have this kind of big winners that will bridge the gap for these tech jobs?
I'm gonna try and cipher. All I will say about that is, we are a very, very young ecosystem. We have so much opportunity ahead of us. I think, the growth that we've seen over the last 10 years, specifically over the last 5 years, have been massive. When you look at venture activity by deal count, by deal volume, all of that, we're trending in such a positive direction. Does that mean we're there yet? No. Things take time. From an Emerge perspective, something that we're super, super proud of, and it's directly about creating jobs, is the Washington Economics Group did an independent study on us last year for our 10-year anniversary to see the impact that Emerge has had, both from job creation and economic activity, and super proud to say that our small organization has helped create over 10,000 high-paying jobs in our state. And we've had over $2.6 billion economic impact in our state as well. So I can tell you firsthand, from our perspective, we're going to continue doing that. I think if we were able to do that over the last 10 years, I hope we could do that times 10 within the next 10 years because of the parallel growth that we've seen across sectors in Miami.
Awesome. So if you take on that, how can we bridge the gap?
I mean, I think one of the most important things is it's the compounding effect of time. And we have to see more of our founders have some of these successive wins. And then these are the types of individuals who are going to pour back risky capital into our local economy. At the end of the day, when you look around at regions that have had these colossal forms of success, and I'm gonna remove Silicon Valley from that because that is one of the most special places on earth when you consider not only the amount of inbound federal investments that happen into research universities like Stanford and Berkeley, and then the compounding impact of philanthropy. I mean, if you look at the size of the endowment of Stanford, it's bigger than the size of the endowment of all of the research universities in the southeastern United States from Atlanta down to Miami combined, one university. So when people say, well, why are we not on the same level of Silicon Valley? Think about one private research university's philanthropic endowment is bigger than Emory, UF, University of Miami, FIU, and combined, right? So we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and recognize that it will be a function of the compounding effects of those regional entrepreneurs that wind up reinvesting and seeing something in what's happening in this economy. Other important thing, and I think that this is kind of like the hard truth that we need to embrace, we need to move from this concept of lifestyle entrepreneurship to the idea of entrepreneurship is very, very, very hard. All of you who are showing up here that are builders and founders and operators, you know this, but it's never been an easier time to actually build and create. So we oftentimes get lost in these conversations about AI, and we reflect on it in terms of some McKinsey research report. I literally was telling my daughter, who's a freshman in college, this yesterday. I said, stop reading these research reports and actually download Replit, download Cursor, download Bolt, and actually start to build and compile around these tools yourself. And I think for us, as an ecosystem, we win not by more cocktails, but by more curiosity and actually saying, are you willing to get your hands a little bit dirty in building with code? Can you challenge yourself to a mini hackathon of one where you're going to say that I'm going to build and compile an app and put it onto the Apple App Store myself? And you could do that if you're not a coder. You could do that if maybe your background is you studied East Asian philosophy or something like that. So I think that it is also about a culture shift away from, we have beautiful weather and we're a great place to be, but if we want to be able to have the gravitas and to be taken on with a degree of seriousness, it requires each and every one of us to look back in the mirror, that 4 a.m. stare in the mirror, and ask ourselves, are we approaching and attacking the problem with the degree of seriousness so that global investors, look, Miami was never on the list of what are called GFCI, Global Financial Centers Index. It's the list of the top global financial centers in the world. We were never on that list ever before, and the first year that we appeared on that list, we were in the top 25 in the world, along with some of the biggest financial centers in the world. But I think it's going to require inward reflection, and reflection with a little bit of action, I think is what will will move the needle for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was just going to add that one thing that I think the pandemic also did is kind of prove the theory of Steve Case. If you guys have heard of him, co-founder of AOL, and he started something called the Rise of the Rest, which was his whole mission with the Rise of the Rest was to prove that you can be an entrepreneur and you can build outside of the typical ecosystem, right? Which is the Silicon Valleys of the world, which obviously hold their place. I totally agree with you, Saif, but I think, that proved that you can choose now as an entrepreneur a lot of other spaces in the US and across the world as well for where you want to build, launch, and scale. I think that has been very accretive to South Florida and the building of our ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you. And so before we close this keynote, I would like to have your opinion on the project that we are building. Real estate is also one of the largest contributors of the GDP of Miami. I think it's something around the 40 billion yearly contribution to the Miami growth. If you project yourself in that project of creating a digital replica of the city and creating job with AI and digital twins in real estate, do you think that could help bridge the gap and create those jobs that we need?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think you're sitting in a great space, which is that intersection of technology and innovation and real estate. Florida is known, right, as a traditional investments into real estate. So I think the fact that you're bridging that is massive, and I think it could only help accelerate job growth, opportunity, and it's a really exciting time to be doing that here in Florida, for sure.
Thank you.
What I love about what's happening at this exact moment, I actually had a debate with a journalist from the Wall Street Journal in peak Miami crypto. And I said, please stop and I know Susan Amat will chuckle at this, as will Mel. I said, please stop writing every article about Miami that starts with Club 11 and Lambos, right? Like, just it does no service to what's happening. And I think in this moment that we're in, I would say more layer ones, less Lambos, right? And I think that that's where we will win. And that thoughtfulness, like if we are trying to convince enterprise level customers, the biggest developers in the world, that there is an entire universe that exists out there with the tokenization of the world's largest asset class, leveraging into the power of the decentralized web. I don't look at crypto as something that's about pumping and dumping NFTs. I think about it in terms, I'm from Guyana. I have my cousins that are back in the village in Guyana. Right now, using TradFi payment rails, if I take $100 and I go to Publix and I go to Western Union or MoneyGram, I pay $20 in Miami. When my cousin in the village, she goes to get the money I'm sending her, she pays $20. $100 becomes $60. So I think about it in terms of how can $100 get to her at $99.99 to actually help support her. I don't view that. For those of us who comes from countries like Venezuela, we see financial instability and wild inflation. So I think that right now, this degree of seriousness that we're approaching with leveraging digital twins, which is the future, enterprises around the world, putting it on the blockchain so that we know that it's immutable. that we actually have a permissionless world that we're operating in. This is not about scamming customers and committing securities fraud or anything like that. People who think that we're in the Wild West have a reckoning coming. This is not about scamming people. This is about actually building higher degrees of trust. So when we think meme coins might be fun, that actually doesn't contribute to an enduring economy. It's about young people like this young man who's here in the audience. He's wearing the coolest hat. He should stand up. He's wearing a hat which says "Make chess great again." Let's give him applause. Let's give him applause. And mom and dad, I think we're here, right? Look at this. Let's see this. Number one, right? So at the end of the day, high five, bud. This is awesome, right? At the end of the day, yeah, number one chess player. This is awesome, right? So at the end of the day, what we're seeing here is about the convergence of a lot of things, right? Yes, let's give it up. How it is that we're harnessing blockchain technologies, digital twins, and we're better to be an action laboratory than Miami. Salute to everybody who's here right now. Sometimes you're so early, it's painful. Folks like Susan, me, and Mel, we know what that feels like. We're so early, we'd be sitting around and wondering, when is the world gonna actually get caught up with us? But if you're part of this movement today, I promise you, you're part of something that's much, much bigger that's coming. And when the world wakes up and realizes that you've actually created a parallel for our physical world, I think that we're going to wind up having a lot more momentum. So salute to you, Machu. Thank you so much for having Melissa and I here today.
Thank you. It was great to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you.